The galaxy laughed when a human entered the ring. Nobody laughed after she tore the champion apart with her bare hands. Counselor Vresh settled into his observation pod, all four of his eye stalks focused on the arena floor below. The Galactic Combat Championship, held once every solar cycle on Station Terminus 7, was about to begin, and he had front row seats. Well, front row floating pod, but who was counting? "This is going to be hilarious," chirped Ambassador Kix from the pod beside him, her mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among the Chitauri. They actually let a human enter. A human. Can you believe it? Resh couldn't help but share her amusement. Humans. Those soft, squishy things from that backwater planet called Earth. They had been part of the Galactic Council for barely 3 standard years, and already they were getting ideas above their station. The arena stretched out before them, a massive circular cage with reinforced plexi-steel walls, energy barriers humming at full power, and enough medical drones hovering around the perimeter to handle whatever carnage was about to unfold. The championship belt, glittering with rare metals from 17 different worlds, hung suspended above the center ring. "I heard she paid the entry fee with actual credits," Resh said, shaking his primary head. "Not even sponsored. Just walked up to the registration desk and signed herself in." "Desperation or stupidity?" Kix asked. "With humans? Both, probably." The crowd, a sea of species from across the known galaxy, filled the stadium seating. Thousands of beings, from the towering Kregnor to the blob-like Pluthovians, all chattering excitedly. The betting screens flashed odds so lopsided they were practically vertical, 10,000 to 1 against the human. Resh had seen better odds on a glimmermoth surviving a solar flare. Then she entered. The human fighter stepped into the arena, and the crowd's chatter turned into outright laughter. Kira Volkov, according to the holo display, stood at what humans called 5 feet 9 inches. Tiny. Really. Her skin was that weird peachy tan color humans came in, her hair tied back in a simple dark ponytail. She wore minimal armor, just some compression gear and hand wraps. No exoskeleton, no bio-enhancements visible, no weapon augments. "She looks like she wandered in from a gym," someone shouted from the upper decks. Resh had to agree. Compared to the previous fighters, beings who had cybernetic limbs, acid glands, or natural armor plating, Kira Volkov looked about as threatening as a Terran house pet. This was going to be a massacre. And not in the humans' favor. Resh leaned back in his pod, feeling almost guilty about the entertainment he was about to witness. Humans were fragile, everyone knew that. He had reviewed the medical reports when Earth first joined the Council. Single heart, pathetically slow healing, no natural weapons, no venom, no protective carapace. They broke bones from simple falls. They needed constant hydration. They could be killed by their own planet's wildlife. For crying out loud, what kind of species loses fights to its own ecosystem? He remembered the incident at the Council cafeteria last year. A human diplomat had tripped over a maintenance bot and fractured something called a wrist. The entire medical bay had gone into crisis mode over a minor skeletal crack. It had been the talk of the station for weeks, and now one of them wanted to fight professionally. The arena lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the opposite entrance tunnel. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," the announcer's voice boomed through the stadium. "Presenting your reigning champion, the undefeated, the unstoppable, the undisputed terror of the ring. Standing 8 feet tall, weighing in at 640 pounds of pure muscle and rage. From the war moons of Drakon Prime, I give you Thorak the Bone Crusher." The crowd erupted. Thorak emerged from the tunnel, and even Vresh felt a tremor of primal fear. The Draconian was a mountain of scale and sinew. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where everything wanted to kill everything else. His arms, all 4 of them, were thicker than support beams. His hide had natural armor plating that could deflect plasma rounds. His jaw could crush steel. He had held the championship belt for 3 years running, and 17 fighters had been carried out of the ring on stretchers after facing him. 3 had not been carried out at all. They had been scraped out. 20 credits says the human doesn't last 10 seconds, someone behind Vresh wagered. "I will take that bet," another replied. "I say 5 seconds, tops." The betting screens updated frantically. The odds against Kira Volkov climbed to 15,000 to 1. Some spectators were not even betting on whether she would lose, but rather how many bones would break before the referee called it. The over-under was set at 12. Thorak raised all 4 arms, and the crowd chanted his name. He beat his chest, a sound like thunder rolling through mountains. His challenge roar shook the stadium, a primal bellow that had made countless opponents forfeit before the match even started. Kira Volkov did not flinch. She just stood there, rolling her shoulders, bouncing slightly on the balls of her feet. The ceremonial pre-fight inspection began. The referee, a hulking Graxian with sensor implants covering half his face, approached Thorak first, standard procedure. He scanned for illegal augments, checked the natural weapons registry, confirmed the weight class. Thorak flexed and postured, playing to the crowd. Then the referee approached Kira. The scan took 3 seconds. No cybernetics, no biomods, no weapon enhancements, no armor rating above Class 2, the referee announced, his voice dripping with disbelief. Confirmed legal, but, he paused, looking at Kira with what might have been concern or pity. Competitor, are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? You can forfeit now with no penalty. Kira smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yeah, I am good. Let's get this started. The referee shrugged, which for a Graxian involved 3 sets of shoulder joints. He stepped back to the center of the ring. Thorak cracked his knuckles, all 16 of them. The hollow display projected both fighters side by side for the crowd's benefit, complete with technical readouts. The comparison was, to put it mildly, absurd. Thorak, the bone crusher, 8 feet, 2 inches, 643 pounds, bone density rating of 9.7, 4 arms, each capable of lifting 1,200 pounds, bite force of 3,000 psi. Natural armor plating rated to withstand Class 3 energy weapons, estimated strike force, enough to dent titanium. Kira Volkov, 5 feet, 9 inches, 168 pounds. Bone density rating of, the scanner paused, 1.8, 2 arms, bite force of 162 psi. No natural armor. Estimated strike force. The display actually showed a shrug emoji. The crowd lost it. Laughter rolled through the stadium in waves. Is this a joke? Bellowed a Graxian from the luxury boxes. Did someone sign up their pet? In the fighter's staging area visible on the secondary screens, other competitors watched with mixtures of amusement and second-hand embarrassment. Graf the Render, scheduled to fight in the next bout, shook his massive horned head. Humans should stick to their paperwork and their diplomacy, he rumbled to his trainer. This is just sad. I heard they die if they get too hot, his trainer replied, or too cold, or if they do not drink water for like a day. Pathetic. Back in the ring, the referee called both fighters to the center for the traditional face-off. Thorak stomped forward, each footfall making the arena floor vibrate. He loomed over Kira, casting her entirely in shadow. His smallest arm was wider than her torso. One of his hands could wrap around her head completely. Kira walked up calmly, her expression neutral, almost bored. You still have time to walk away, little thing, Thorak growled, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. I have killed beings twice your size by accident during warm-ups. Cool story, Kira said flatly. The referee stepped between them. Official rules. 3 rounds, 5 minutes each. Victory by knockout, submission, or ring-out. Lethal force is permitted but discouraged. Medical drones are standing by. In the event of death, all liability waivers are already signed. Do you both understand? Yes, Thorak rumbled. Yep, Kira said. Touch gloves, or whatever equivalent appendages you possess. Thorak extended one massive fist. Kira tapped it with her knuckles. Her entire hand looked like a child's toy next to his. The referee should have said more. Should have warned them both. Should have reminded Thorak that attacking before the bell was an automatic disqualification and potential criminal charge. Should have verified that both fighters understood the rules completely. But he was already backing away, probably planning his post-match report on the fastest knockout in championship history. The crowd quieted slightly, anticipation building. Resh adjusted all 4 eye stalks, not wanting to miss a single moment of what was about to be the most lopsided match in Galactic Combat Championship history. Thorak returned to his corner, cracking his neck. All 3 sections of it. Kira walked to her corner, took a sip of water, and stretched her arms across her chest. The bell operator raised his hand, hovering over the button. This was it. This is not even a fight, Resh muttered to Ambassador Kix. This is going to be an execution. I am starting to feel bad for her. Do not, Kix replied, her translator crackling. She signed up for this. Natural selection in action, if you ask me. The arena crew made their final checks. Energy barriers hummed to full power, the medical drones ran diagnostic cycles, and the cleanup crew stood ready with their sanitization equipment. They always needed the cleanup crew after thorax matches. The timekeeper synced his equipment with the main display. 5 minutes on the clock, ready to start counting down the moment the bell rang. The odds board updated one final time. 20,000 to 1 against Kira Volkov. Someone had actually bet a small fortune on Thorak winning in under 30 seconds. That someone was probably about to get very rich. Thorak began his intimidation routine. He slammed his fists together, the sound echoing like gunshots. He roared again, showing rows of teeth designed to tear through muscle and bone. He grabbed the cage wall and shook it, the reinforced plexus steel groaning under the stress. The crowd ate it up, chanting his name louder and louder. Then he did something truly terrifying. He picked up the 100-pound practice weight his corner team had brought and crushed it between two hands. The metal crumpled like paper. He tossed the mangled remains aside and glared across the ring at Kira. You see that, human? That will be your spine. Kira, for her part, was doing the strangest warm-up routine Resh had ever witnessed. She was not roaring or posturing or trying to look intimidating, she was just stretching, rolling her neck in slow circles, rotating her shoulders, shaking out her legs. She looked like she was preparing for a light jog, not a fight to the potential death. Then she did something odd. She closed her eyes, took 3 deep breaths, and when she opened them again, something had changed. Resh could not quite put his primary finger on it, but her entire demeanor had shifted. The boredom was gone. What replaced it was focus. Cold, absolute focus. The referee stepped to the center of the ring one final time. Fighters, when the bell rings, you may begin. Not before. Am I clear? Thorak grunted acknowledgement, still beating his chest. Kira just nodded once. The referee backed away to the edge of the cage. The timekeeper's hand hovered over the bell. The crowd held its collective breath. Resh leaned forward in his pod, all 4 eye stalks fixed on the ring. The moment stretched out, tension building like a coiled spring. And then, Thorak made the biggest mistake of his life. He did not wait for the bell. It happened so fast that most of the crowd missed the beginning. Thorak, perhaps overcome by bloodlust, perhaps thinking the human looked too calm, perhaps just tired of waiting, charged. 3 full seconds before the bell, he crossed the ring in 2 massive strides, all 4 arms reaching for Kira, his roar splitting the air. It was illegal, it was dishonorable, it was also incredibly stupid. Kira moved. Resh's eye stalks could barely track it. One moment she was standing still, the next she had sidestepped Thorak's charge with a speed that should not have been possible for a species with 1.8 bone density. But that was not the shocking part. The shocking part was what happened next. Thorak, realizing he had missed, spun around, swinging his primary right arm in a backhand that could have decapitated a Graxian. Kira ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, and grabbed him. Her hands locked onto his secondary left arm, the smallest of his 4 limbs, but still twice the thickness of her own. Oh no, Kira said quietly. Her voice was picked up by the arena microphones. You should not have done that. Then she pulled. The sound was unlike anything Vresh had ever heard. A wet, tearing crunch that echoed through the suddenly silent stadium. Thorak's arm came off. Not broke. Not dislocated. Came off. Ripped clean from the socket. Scales, muscle, bone and all. Thorak's roar of aggression turned into a shriek of agony. Kira was not done. While Thorak staggered, each oar spraying from his shoulder, Kira spun, using the severed arm as a club. She brought it around in a wide arc and slammed it into Thorak's knee. His own arm. The bone inside shattered on impact. The champion of 3 years, the undefeated terror of the ring, collapsed to one knee. Stop, the referee screamed, finally finding his voice. Stop, the match has not started. Kira either did not hear him or did not care. She dropped the severed arm and grabbed Thorak's primary jaw with one hand and his secondary jaw with the other. The Draconian tried to pull away, tried to bring his remaining 3 arms up to defend himself, but Kira had already braced her leg against his chest. You wanted to fight a human, she said, her voice calm, almost conversational. Congratulations. Then she pulled in opposite directions. The sound was worse this time. Much worse. Thorak's jaw, the same jaw that could crush steel, tore away from his skull. Not cleanly. messily. Strings of tissue and fragments of bone followed. His scream cut off into a gurgling rasp. The champion fell backward, his massive body hitting the arena floor with a crash that shook the stadium. Blood, thick and green, pooled rapidly beneath him. Kira stood over him, breathing slightly harder than before, not even winded. She dropped the chunk of jaw she was still holding. It landed with a wet slap. The arena was silent. Completely, utterly silent. Then someone screamed. The medical drones swarmed in, their sensors blaring critical alerts. The referee stood frozen, his scanning implants flickering as his brain tried to process what he had just witnessed. The cleanup crew stumbled forward, then stopped, clearly unsure if this was even their jurisdiction anymore. Resh felt all four of his stomachs lurch. Ambassador Kex made a choking sound beside him. On the arena floor, Thorak the Bone Crusher, undefeated champion, terror of the ring, twitched once, twice, and then went still. The medical drones clustered around him, their readouts flashing between critical and flatline. Kira Volkov calmly walked back to her corner, picked up her water bottle and took a sip. The bell, forgotten in the chaos, finally rang. The match had officially started. The reigning champion was already dead, and the human had not even broken a sweat. "What?" Resh whispered, his voice box barely functioning. "What in the name of the seven hells just happened?" Nobody had an answer. Not yet. The arena exploded into pandemonium. Half the crowd was screaming. The other half was running for the exits. The betting screens flickered wildly, unable to process what had just occurred. How do you calculate payouts when the match never technically started? How do you declare a winner when the loser died before the opening bell? The medical drones surrounded Thorak's body, their mechanical arms working frantically. One of them broadcast a flatline signal. Another was trying to reattach the severed arm, which was a lost cause considering it had been used as a blunt weapon. A third drone just hovered there, its sensors flickering in what might have been robotic confusion. "We need a full surgical team down here now," the head medic screamed into his communicator. "And bring the stasis pod." "No, the big one. The one we use for Kragnorians." Security officers poured into the arena from every entrance. A dozen Enforcement Guild members, armed with shock batons and riot shields, formed a perimeter around the cage. They were not looking at Thorak's body, they were looking at Kira. She had sat down on the stool in her corner, still sipping water, still calm. "Competitor Volkov," the security chief barked through his helmet speaker. "Step away from the corner and place your hand appendages. Place them where we can see them." Kira looked up, genuinely confused. "What? Why? He attacked me before the bell. Self-defense." "Self-defense?" the referee sputtered, finally unfreezing. "You ripped him apart?" "Yeah," Kira said slowly, like she was explaining something to a child, "because he attacked me before the bell, which is illegal. I was defending myself." Resh clutched the edge of his observation pod, his manipulator tendrils trembling. His brain was trying to reconcile what he had just witnessed with everything he knew about humans. Fragile, weak, prone to injury from minor falls. This human had just torn apart a draconian, a species literally evolved for combat, like he was made of wet tissue paper. "This is not possible," he whispered. "The medical reports, the physical assessments, the biological surveys. Humans are Category 5, soft bodies. They should not be able to do that. They cannot do that." "Well, apparently they can," Quick said weakly. Her mandibles had gone completely still, a sign of extreme shock in Chitauri. Down in the fighter staging area, chaos reigned. Grath the Render, who had been laughing at the human minutes ago, was backing away from the monitor screen. "No," he said. "No, no, I am not fighting after this. Cancel my match. Cancel it right now." His trainer did not argue. He was already packing their equipment. Two other fighters scheduled for later bouts were withdrawing on the spot, forfeiting their entry fees without hesitation. One of them, a Voltharian with acid sacs and razor claws, was literally crying. "I have younglings," she sobbed. "I cannot. I will not." The arena announcer, a professional who had called fights for 15 years, tried to speak into his microphone 3 times before managing actual words. "Ladies, gentlemen and beings, we are experiencing. There has been an incident. By the council, what did I just watch?" Station Security Coordinator Jalvik pushed through the crowd of medical personnel, his scales pale with stress. "Lock down the arena. Nobody leaves until we figure out what happened here." And someone get me the human ambassador on the comm right now. Which ambassador? Someone asked. Any of them. All of them. I do not care. 20 minutes later, in the station command center, Dr. Ixara stood before a hastily assembled group of officials, security personnel, and traumatized witnesses. The Venloxian medical officer pulled up holographic displays with shaking appendages. You all saw the preliminary reports when Earth joined the Council, she began, her voice tight. Single cardiovascular system, slow regeneration, no natural defenses. But what those reports did not emphasize, what we completely failed to understand, is where humans come from. She pulled up an image of Earth. Class 12 Death World, she continued. 12. For context, the minimum rating for a planet to be considered hostile to life is 6. Most Council species evolved on Class 3 or 4 worlds. Earth scores a 12. Resh felt his stomachs drop again. 12? How is that even possible? How did they survive long enough to develop space travel? That is exactly the point, Counselor. They survived. Everything on Earth is trying to kill everything else. The gravity alone. Dr. Ixara pulled up comparison charts. Earth's surface gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. The draconian homeworld, where Thorak came from, 7.1. Humans spend their entire lives in higher gravity than most combat species. Security Coordinator Jalvik leaned forward. What does that mean practically? It means their muscles are not designed for their own planet's gravity, they are overbuilt for it. A human operating in standard station gravity, which we keep at 6.5 for general comfort, is functionally enhanced. Their bone density reading of 1.8 is measured against their own crushing gravity. Adjusted for standard station gravity, it would rate around 4.2. That is still below Thorak's 9.7, Resh protested weakly. True, but human bones are not just dense, they are flexible, they bend before breaking, and their muscles. Dr. Ixara highlighted another chart. Humans have a neurological governor, a built-in limiter that prevents them from using their full strength because, if they did, they would tear their own tendons and shatter their own bones. In moments of extreme stress or perceived mortal danger, this governor released. The room went quiet. Are you telling me, Jalvik said slowly, that humans are naturally strong enough to injure themselves so their own brains stop them from using their full capacity? Yes, and when that limiter comes off, even partially. Dr. Ixara gestured to the screens showing medical footage of Thorak's remains. You saw what happens. Competitor Volkov did not use advanced techniques or secret training. She just stopped holding back. Holding back? Gresh repeated. Humans walk around holding back? Every single day of their lives, yes. 3 days later, Counselor Vresh watched the news feeds from his office, nursing a strong drink that his species should not technically be able to digest. He did not care anymore. The Galactic Combat Championship had announced sweeping rule changes. Humans were now banned from open-weight competitions, not because they were too weak, because they were too dangerous. New categories had been created. Weight classes were being recalculated. Liability insurance premiums had tripled. Kira Volkov had given exactly one statement to the press before leaving Station Terminus 7. I am sorry that Thorak died. I really am, but he attacked me before the bell, and I reacted on instinct. Where I come from, when something tries to kill you, you do not give it a second chance. Maybe next time do not assume someone is weak just because they look different than you. The investigation had cleared her of all charges. Self-defense. The recordings were clear. Thorak had moved first. Everything else was just consequence. Humans were no longer the joke of the Council. Applications from human security contractors were flooding every major station. 3 governments had already extended offers for human military advisors. The phrase Death World species was being whispered in corridors with newfound respect and no small amount of fear. Resh pulled up the old medical report on humans. Fragile, weak, prone to injury. He added his own note to the file. Revision required. Humans are not weak. They are terrifying. They simply choose not to be most of the time. Recommend extreme caution. Do not anger. Do not threaten. And for the love of all that is sacred in this galaxy, do not ever, under any circumstances, start a fight with one before they are ready. He took another drink. Somewhere on Earth, humanity continued going about its day, completely unaware that the galaxy had just learned to be properly afraid of them. Weak. Right, that was hilarious.